Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a horror from 2018 titled The Farm. The movie begins with Nora and Alec, a couple from Los Angeles, embarking on a countryside getaway. However, as they make their way to their destination, they find themselves lost. Seeking assistance, they stop at a way station, but to their surprise, it is empty with no one inside. Nora, in need of a restroom, searches for one but instead stumbles upon a cell phone and a purse belonging to someone else. Despite the odd discovery, she proceeds to relieve herself in the open, oblivious to the presence of a bloody human skull nearby. Returning to the car, Nora casually mentions the belongings she found at the way station. Alec, however, seems more concerned about the dwindling fuel in the car and appears less bothered by the situation. Along the way, they encounter a woman whose car has broken down. Alec offers to assist by jump-starting her car and promptly begins working on it. Meanwhile, Nora engages in conversation with the woman, who curiously asks if Nora is married to Alec. This question makes Nora uncomfortable, and she firmly asserts that it is none of her business. The woman takes offense and proceeds to criticize the couple, calling them irresponsible and stupid. As Alec's attempts to fix the car proves unsuccessful, the woman becomes increasingly annoyed and insults Alec by labeling him a lousy boyfriend. Infuriated by her comments, the couple decides to leave the woman behind, getting back into their car and driving away. While driving, Nora expresses her dislike for the countryside, citing encounters with people like the old woman as one of the reasons for her disdain. After some time, they stumble upon a crowded diner and decide to stop there for a meal. The waitress provides them with menus, and they proceed to order burgers and drinks. However, when they take a bite, they realize that the taste is peculiar. Suddenly, Alec notices a man staring at Nora in an odd manner, which makes him uneasy. Feeling uncomfortable, he insists on leaving, and Nora agrees. They prepare to exit the diner without finishing their meal. However, just as they are about to leave, the man abruptly intercepts them and warns Nora about her safety in the village. In the following scene, Alec exhibits genuine concern about the man's earlier statement, but Nora dismisses it, considering the man as merely a local oddball. After a while, they stop at a gas station, and Alec refuels the car. He also asks the cashier named Andrew for nearby hotel options. Andrew points them towards some rental cabins further up the road. Continuing their journey, they come across a rundown cabin. At first, Nora feels unsettled by the dilapidated place, but with no other options available, they decide to enter. As they climb the stairs together, they are startled by the appearance of the landlord, whose face is contorted and disfigured. Despite his eerie looks, he warmly greets them and inquires if they need a room. Alec confirms their need for accommodation, and the landlord leads them to a nearby cabin, mentioning that it used to be rented by scouts and campers. Once the landlord departs, a worried Nora confides in Alec, expressing her suspicions about the landlord. However, Alec reassures her and convinces her that everything is fine. While they continue to converse, the camera shifts to the top of the bunk bed, revealing disturbing bloodstains. During the night, a person wearing a sheep mask is seen hiding beneath the couple's bed. Slowly, the masked figure emerges from under the bed, looming over them in a threatening manner. The following morning, Nora wakes up and realizes she is trapped inside a dog cage. The horrifying sight nearly causes her to have a heart attack. She desperately tries to free herself while calling out for Alec, but he is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a man wearing a goat mask emerges and forcefully hits her cage, signaling for her to remain silent. Frightened, Nora obeys, but once the masked man departs, she attempts to escape. She notices a rock outside the cage and manages to reach it through the bars. She then tries to use the rock to break the lock on her cage. However, at that moment, the man with the goat mask returns, accompanied by another man wearing a cow mask. The latter slowly approaches her, and she panics. The man sedates her, causing her to lose consciousness. When Nora wakes up later, she finds herself in a barn, tightly restrained to a chair with her legs forcefully spread apart. A man dressed as a rabbit then appears and uses a large syringe-like tool to artificially inseminate her, causing her to scream in agonizing pain. Next, Nora is placed in her cage and taken by the two men from earlier to an unknown location. During the journey, she observes other masked individuals in the barn carrying out their daily tasks. To her horror, she witnesses a man dismembering another man's body, revealing that this farm is involved in the production of human meat. After some time, the two men eventually leave Nora in the barn. The scene shifts to a room where Alec and other men are imprisoned in a cage. As Alec regains consciousness, he realizes that he is tightly gagged and stripped of his clothing. Despite attempting to communicate with the other men in the barn, Alec's efforts are in vain. Suddenly, a group of villagers appears, systematically striking the captive men's heads to render them unconscious. Eventually, the villagers turn their attention to Alec, creating a terrifying situation. Although he tries to escape, Alec is ultimately subdued by the villains. Subsequently, an unconscious Alec is placed on a trolley and transported to the slaughterhouse for further processing. The subsequent scene reveals that the compound is in fact a communal farm operated by individuals wearing animal masks. They capture men for butchering and women for milk production. The harvested meat is then used to cater to weddings and various ceremonies. Shockingly, it is uncovered that the landlord from earlier is the leader of this disturbing organization. In the next scene, the landlord receives a significant order that demands a large quantity of meat. However, a worker informs him that they lack enough men to meet the demand. With limited options, the landlord decides to utilize one of the confined women, who are specifically raised for milk production. He proceeds to the dairy barn, where numerous cages house lactating women. The landlord assesses their milk production rates to select the least productive woman for slaughter. During the inspection, he discovers that a woman has been secretly breastfeeding her baby. This infuriates the landlord, who has been struggling to meet the demand for milk and meat in his business. Consequently, he orders a worker to seize the baby and ruthlessly smashes it on the ground, resulting in instant death. After the heartless men depart, the woman is overcome with sorrow and cries for her child. It is then revealed that Andrew, introduced earlier in the movie, is an employee of the landlord and his role is to direct visitors to the cabins. However, Andrew has a mental disability and condescends to the distressed woman while speaking to her. This angers her, and she refers to him as sick. In response, Andrew also becomes angry and labels her a bad human. Later on, when a worker arrives at the dairy barn to investigate, he discovers the lifeless body of the woman. It becomes evident that Andrew killed her and fled from the scene. Upon learning of this, the landlord becomes furious and commands his men to find Andrew. Inside the barn, Nora discovers another captive woman confined next to her in a stable. The woman is connected to a milking machine and is continuously subjected to milking. When Nora inquires about the happenings at the farm, the woman advises her not to seek knowledge because there is no escape. She discloses that she has been held captive at the farm for 2 years solely for breeding purposes. She has been repeatedly impregnated to the point where she is no longer able to conceive. While conversing, they hear the cries of another captive woman named Ashley, who has been held captive for 3 years. Nora attempts to offer support, assuring her that they will find a way to escape. In the slaughterhouse, a masked man catches Andrew playing with severed heads. Andrew pleads that he is not to blame, but he is forcefully taken away. The landlord then scolds Andrew for neglecting his duties and explicitly instructs him not to play with his food. As a consequence, Andrew is assigned to a masked supervisor who directs him to feed the imprisoned men their meals. However, while carrying out this task, Andrew accidentally spills the entire contents of the food pot. Fearing punishment, he flees, and the masked worker chases after him. Their pursuit leads them into the greenhouse, where Andrew seizes a handful of oregano and continues his escape. He hurries to the kitchen, where the landlord is located, and presents the oregano as an offering. The landlord accepts Andrew's gift and forgives him. Upon the arrival of the worker who had been chasing Andrew, the landlord instructs him to dispose of the unproductive women who are unable to produce milk. The scene transitions to the barn, where Nora observes the woman from earlier undergoing processing, similar to the way meat is handled. Once the butchers depart, Nora succumbs to despair and breaks down. However, her grief is cut short by a noise at her door. To her astonishment, Alec is still alive and well. Nora exhales with delight, and they manage to escape from the stables after a bit of trouble. Yet, the danger is far from over as they must navigate through the property while evading the masked men. Nora assists Alec in reaching a truck for their getaway, but at a crucial moment, the vehicle fails to start, compelling them to continue on foot. Eventually, they stumble upon a church and decide to take a momentary break. As the couple surveys their surroundings, they notice that the faces of Jesus and his disciples have been replaced with animal masks. Suddenly, a man wearing a cow mask enters the church and begins to pray. Seizing the opportunity, the couple sees it as their perfect chance to flee. Regrettably, they are spotted, and the cowman signals others on the farm by ringing a bell. While running, Alec is caught in a bear trap, and Nora attempts to free him. However, upon seeing the approaching masked workers, Alec instructs her to run. Reluctantly, Nora realizes she has no other choice but to leave Alec behind. As she flees, the workers catch up to Alec and brutally crush his head with a rock. Nora seeks safety in the male barn, where she attracts the attention of one of the male hostages. He discreetly signals her to escape for her own safety. Responding swiftly, Nora approaches his cage and implores him to assist her in fleeing from the wretched farm. Despite some hesitation, the man reveals crucial information to her. He discloses the existence of a bus used by the workers to transport their victims and informs her about the location of the keys. Armed with this knowledge, Nora makes her way to the expansive parking area, filled with numerous cars. There she notices a masked driver, fortunately with his back turned to her. Seizing the opportunity, Nora strikes him forcefully on the head with a hammer, rendering him unconscious. At that moment, 3 masked individuals spot Nora and quickly approach her. However, she manages to enter one of the cars and drives through the fence. Unfortunately, her escape is short-lived as the car soon runs out of fuel, forcing her to abandon it. Now being pursued across the property, with no other options available, Nora ultimately seeks refuge back at the stables. Inside, she frees Ashley and assists her in reaching the outdoors. Together, they make their way to the bus, only to discover that the keys are missing. Although disappointed, Nora recalls the earlier information shared by the captive man and decides to retrieve the keys from the specified house. Miraculously, she locates the keys and promptly returns to the bus. However, a sense of unease washes over Ashley, and as Nora starts the bus, she realizes with horror that all the seats have been occupied by masked individuals. The film concludes with the disguised workers assembled around a table where Nora and Ashley are presented like roast pigs with apples in their mouths. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more videos.